Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Daisy. I am the Education Planner from IAE Global London office. IAE Global is a leading provider of international students recruitment. Today, presenting the University of Law, it's our pleasure to have John here and Ben from Employability will be our presenter today. Let me kick off from a quick introduction about our company. IAE Global started from a single office in Seoul, South Korea, 1992. And yes, this year is our 30 years anniversary. IAE Global has become one of the largest and most diverse student recruitment organization in the world. And we have become an industry leader in international student recruitment. We have a broad presence in major students' home countries, such as China, India, Japan, Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Nepal, and others, as well as destination countries where our partner institutions are located, like the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and others destination countries. The scale and international reach of our network mean we can offer recruitment expertise in a variety of countries. It also means that we have a closer relationship, better knowledge of our institution that our students attend. Like today, the University of Law. Right, and here is our contact detail from London office. Feel free to contact us after the webinar. Now, without further ado, we will pass over to John. Hi, John.
Hi, Daisy, and thank you ever so much for that introduction. I very much like the slide with Tower Bridge on it. I have walked not far away from that this morning. I'm actually sitting in our London Moorgate campus, where over to my left, I have the Royal Artillery Company base, which is occasionally we see some military figures marching around. They've got excellent playing fields, so sometimes you can be studying and looking outside and watching all sorts of sports taking place. And even on one occasion, they did the preparation for the Queen's Trooping of the Colour, the rehearsal. So we actually saw the Queen in the distance preparing for her big day when she greets all the troops in the centre of London. So it's an exciting and vibrant place. You mentioned the University of Law. That is what we have been and still are. But what we're really going to emphasize today, although if the law is of interest to anybody listening, of course, we teach that, but we're really focusing on the University of Law Business School, which is something that has been around for a relatively short period of time, less than 10 years. But in that 10-year period has made a huge impact in terms of student experience. Students have come to the University of Law Business School and found that the way in which we prepare students for the world of work is different and in many cases superior to what they might have found elsewhere. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a flavor of what that looks like and why it is that that students are beginning now to, certainly from an international base, find that the University of Law Business School is one of their serious options and in many cases their first choice institution. So I shall put a few slides up. If that allows me, therefore, to take away the contact that was there, that's perfect. And I will just run through a few bits and pieces with you. And my colleague Ben, who's sitting there patiently, will be answering any questions that you pop into the chat box, and the two of us will hopefully be able to answer anything that that isn't clear by the end of the presentation. So first and foremost, the focus of today is around the employment promise. This is a very distinctive offer that the University of Law Business School is making, and clearly it is something that is resonating very strongly with international students. It's a big investment to come to the UK or to study remotely, because we offer that option as well. And therefore, we have looked very carefully about the investment that you make and determine that this is very much a partnership, and that if you put your side of the bargain in, you work really hard, you show the right commitment, the right attitude, then we will make sure that with showing our equal support for you, that if things don't work out, that our employment promise says that you get your money back. And therefore, in essence, we're saying that there is a job guaranteed if you come to the University of Law, so long as you do your bit, of course. It isn't something that's put on a plate for you. You've got to work hard, study hard, and push yourself. But if you do that, then it's quite right that there should be an opportunity to get some recompense. And the basic facts of the matter are that the employment promise says that if you don't have a job within 9 months of finishing your course, then we will contribute 50% of your fees back to you in financial terms, and put the other 50% that you've already spent towards another course that you can take with the university. And we have a wide spectrum of different courses available, and therefore an opportunity potentially for you to do something. Now, it is about qualifying employment. You must be looking for a job, and you must be unable to have found one if you're going to get your money back. Now, this term qualifying employment is quite important. What does it mean? Well, if you haven't got qualifying employment, it means that you haven't really borne the fruit of having come on one of our courses. You haven't really made the ground that you expected to do when you came through. I'll give you a very simple example of a student that I saw just the other day, a student who came to the UK from Nigeria and was studying with us. And when he first arrived in the UK, he decided that he would look for some part-time work to be able to get some experience, to broaden his cultural horizons within the UK, and of course earn some money. And he found a care home where he was welcomed in to be able to provide support. He had a background in the health and social services sector, and therefore he went to work for a care home here in London. Now, working as a carer, vitally important role though that is, that does not constitute qualifying employment. That is not something that somebody studies one of our courses with the view that they're going to go on and do that. However, 6 months after he started doing that, he has now taken on a job with that agent, that care home, where he is helping to structure the resources management to be able to prepare for the launch of another new care home. So he's involved in a project management activity with human resources and resource allocation and financial management involved. That is a really, really good job, and it's a job which would not entitle him to claim money back under the employment promise. So I hope that very simple example gives you a flavor of what does count and what doesn't count. It's also important that we recognize that you must pass exams first time. So the exams which are preparing you with an education to be ready for the workplace. And our employers keep telling us how the digital marketing, the project management, the cybersecurity, all of the courses that we're offering at the moment are providing the very latest information that is valuable to employers. So you have to learn that stuff, and you have to have a good grasp of it, and you have to pass exams to show that you've got it. So you have to work hard, pass those exams, and you have to attend all of your lectures, or at least 80%. We recognize that occasionally people won't feel well, or there are reasons why you can't, but 80% attendance is necessary to be able to demonstrate that you are putting everything into your studies and therefore achieving success. And you must be looking for a job. But if those are the criteria, then if you pass all of those criteria and for whatever reason you have not been able to find qualifying employment during that 9 months, then we would give you your 50% money back and 50% towards another course. So hopefully that gives you a simple run through about what's involved. Questions that you might be asking, well, what about an international student? Does that count? Is it different for the domestic to the international? What about part-time students? Because we do have a lot of students who study over a period of time. Often they have either family commitments or an existing job that they want to continue with. And we have students that study online, partly through circumstance, where at the moment we've just started this week a course for about 7 of our master's programs, and there are a few students unfortunately who have not been able to travel internationally for COVID related reasons, so they are starting off their studies in their own country, awaiting the opportunity to fly into the UK, and then they can come and join me here in the delights of Moorgate or Birmingham or Manchester or wherever it is that they choose to be studying with us. And later on we can perhaps explain that across across the UK, we have 14 different campuses, of which 6 or 7 are available to you from the northernmost England down to the south of England and everything in between. Some of the big cities, London, Manchester, and Birmingham, are where most of our students go, but there are opportunities in some other cities as well. And we also have an online campus, so you can actually study the master's business courses online in its entirety. You never need to leave your own country. You can study it there, and that might be, you know, a choice that somebody makes if they have commitments that mean they can't leave their own country. You would still be studying a UK-based qualification, and therefore a lot of emphasis would be around the cultural norms, etc., that you might find in the UK, because the majority of our international students do have a desire to stay on and work within the UK after they have finished their studies, and to enjoy the benefits of their education within the UK, where they are being so well prepared for the opportunity to gain employment. We also recognise that for some people who might either be staying in their own country or intending to go back there thereafter, that finding information out about how to secure jobs and the market information is hugely valuable in their own country. And we have resources available for that. So yes, of course, we can support anybody that's looking for a job in the UK, but we can also help people who are looking for jobs in any part of the world, wherever you might be coming from. Questions again that might be posed: how do you compare a job that's the standard of that in one country compared to another? Well, essentially, we have access to this local market insight, and again, the same sort of criteria applies. If it's a job that is leading onwards to success in a role that really justifies the investment in a master's program, then it wouldn't count as qualifying employment. The principle in the UK is that if you are a manager, a director, a senior official, you have a professional occupation, so accountant, banker, whatever those might be in terms of those roles, or associate professional. So perhaps you're a trainee accountant, a trainee banker, a trainee HR person, then those are stepping stones onto the ladder of success, and therefore those would not count and be able to get your money back. And also administrative and secretarial occupations. So these are not ones that are pure administration and pure secretarial, but you know, we have a number of roles where there may well be executive type roles, legal executive, finance executive. It's not yet a training role, it's not yet a qualification into a profession, but again, it's a stepping stone, and very often success in that lower role will lead you to promotion and onwards and upwards. So yes, there's a little bit of ambiguity in there, but hopefully you're seeing through the comments that I'm making a reasonably clear distinction between what counts and what doesn't. As I shall say several times in the next 10 or 15 minutes, it's not really our ambition, and it shouldn't be yours, to come to the University of Law Business School and be thinking, how can I meet the criteria that will allow me to get my money back? Because really what we're all hoping for here is a first-class education, doors opening to opportunities, job success, and onwards to profit from the benefits of having come to the university in the first place. Does it ever pay out? Well, the employment promise has existed for our law courses since 2016. I've been here at the university since 2015, so I was here at the start of this, and I can tell you that every single year we have paid out to one or more claimants. Not huge numbers, I have to say, but every year there has been somebody who has successfully claimed the employment promise. So it's real, it's absolutely real. The one common characteristic that we find with the students who are successful claimants is that they, of course, have passed all their exams first time. They have a high attendance record. They've been looking actively for jobs. They've used all the support. They tick all of the requirement boxes. The problem they've had is that they have tended to go for what we might call as a scattergun approach. They've gone for an approach of applying for every single job that they see is available. In some cases, we've seen applicants who've said that in the course of 9 months, they've applied for 500 jobs. Now, you can't knock the effort that someone's put in if they've applied for 500 jobs, but it's very difficult to convince 500 different employers that you really want that job. And so part of the support that we would offer to you whilst you're a student with us, and indeed after you've left us, because we support our alumni, is to narrow down the search. What is it that really you want to do? What is it that you're really best suited to? And then target those employers. And it may be that you only apply for 10 jobs rather than 50 jobs, but 10 good applications is likely to be more successful than 50 where you've had to sort of really be quite thin because there's so much that's trying to be crammed in. So the common feature is there, and as I say, we try to work with students to advise them around those potential risks that we've seen, so that again, in majority of cases, people are aware of the best approach to trying to find the right strategy to find a job. So it's a genuine offer, and we're confident in making that offer because we have a really first-class employability service. We are there to make sure that all of our students are prepared for the world of work, as we describe it, a work-ready global graduate. Whether a student is UK born and bred and going out into the world, or whether they've come from an international location, the operations are all global these days. Of course, we can foreshorten the world by using screens like this to be able to talk to each other in all different parts of the world. We don't need to get on a plane. We don't need to travel, although some of that is opening back up again. But we want everybody that leaves the University of Law Business School to be a work-ready global graduate, and in the majority of cases to have succeeded in finding an opportunity, and if not, then being on the right track towards it. So it's a reassurance really to you as the potential student that if things don't go right, that there is compensation sitting there for you. And that's, I hope, something that if you're making a decision between 2 or 3 universities and the University of Law Business School is a serious consideration, then you should be looking at that promise as being something that perhaps makes the difference between choosing us rather than someone else. But just to emphasize, we don't really want to either party end up in a situation where the employment promise crystallizes. We would much rather not pay you, and I'm sure you would much rather have a successful outcome rather than being able to say, I haven't got a job and I'd like some of my money back. But it's there as the reassurance. What do we do in the employability service, therefore, to make sure that we are maximizing your chances of success? Well, first and foremost, employability is built into every single course in 2 ways. First way is that everybody that teaches you has been out in the professional world in some way or another. We do not work with academics who have only ever been in a classroom and studied the subject from an academic perspective. Everybody has been there and done it. When they talk to you about the various leadership models, the various different models in the economy, they're doing that with a practical context and the realization that when you go out into the world, you'll be dealing with real people, real situations, and therefore bringing it to life in a way that is very, very good for your preparation. But secondly, we also have a real focus around making sure that every bit of teaching links into what it is that actually is being taken from this. So yes, leadership information, but also the ability to manage people, to deal with conflict, to win clients. Those sorts of factors are all built in to the models that we talk about and the academic content that's brought in. We also have a professional development module, which is where employability staff like Ben and I would be involved in actually teaching you in the classroom. I'm a chartered accountant, spent 20 years in the accountancy profession, in which I sat around tables with bankers, with lawyers, with HR people, with recruitment figures, with IT specialists, with project management and consultants. So I am very familiar with what it is that many of the roles that you will be looking for actually look like and the clients that you will be dealing with. And my colleagues across the team, excuse me, are equally well prepared to be able to support you and to get across some of the messages. Some of the content that we actually cover in those sessions are around the skills you need to succeed in the future. So they're not necessarily skills you need to be able to get a job immediately. We cover those, of course, but on top of that, we do things like time management. We do things like networking. We do things like dealing with office politics. We do business development. All those things that really make a difference when you get into the workplace and start to build your career onwards and upwards are covered within the curriculum, and therefore you will get it whether you like it or not. It's not something that you have to put yourself forward for. It's covered, and it's really, really valuable. Your ability to manage your time as a student, vitally important. When you get into the workplace, even more critical. So to be able to demonstrate that you've learned on that at an early stage is hugely beneficial. We have one-to-one career support. You would be able to pull an individual colleague aside and say, right, I'd like some help with my CV. And we spend a lot of time with international students understanding the differences between an international CV from wherever you have come from and a UK CV. There are no photos, there's no date of birth. There's a lot of emphasis around education and skills and work experience. Sometimes it's a big difference, sometimes it's only minor difference, but often the advice and the professional input takes you from having a CV that's not quite good enough to one that gets you into the recruitment process through the first level up to the next one where you're talking about interviews and assessment centers. And we cover every single stage of the recruitment process. Again, coming back to the purpose of today's talk, the employment promise, we want to make you successful. So we're going to spend a lot of time helping you get from the very start, what do I want to do? Through the CV, through the application, through the online test, through the interview, through the assessment center, into the job. It's good news for you. It's good news for us. Clearly, some of the tools that we use are also building upon the experience that we have, which says that those that have been on placements often have an advantage in recruitment processes. So we have a placement program. If you were to come and join us in September this year or sometime next year, then you will be able to participate in a 2-year course, 1 year taught, 1 year placement. You'd have to find that placement with our support, but if you were successful in securing it, then you could spend 2 years at the University of Law Business School, 1 being taught and 1 on a placement, which would give you a fantastic CV, fantastic experience, and most of those placements are paid and paid pretty well. So again, this is a really great stepping stone for you to move onwards. We have lots of employer talks. Some of them are done in person, but the majority at the moment being done online. So wherever you are in the country, wherever you are in the world, you can tune in and listen to employers tell you what it's like to work in their business, what it's like to do the job in reality. So not what the website says, wonderful days here, fantastic clients, wonderful colleagues, brilliant, fantastic, wonderful, wonderful. Actually, sometimes telling you the real home truths that every day there's something different. Some days are not great days. Some days are difficult. Some days are not so exciting, but they all build together to lead to the job that you are looking at. The reality is that we're going to be working for a long time. Retirement for me seems still like a long way off, even though I've got plenty of gray hairs. The reality is with the pandemic, more and more people are going to be working for longer and longer. I'm afraid, and hopefully this doesn't come as a shock to you, that not every single day in that long career is going to be a fulfilling, exciting, joyous day. There are going to be some difficult ones in there, but that's what life is like. And we want to prepare you for the reality. And we don't want you coming back and saying, I saw this job advertised. It looked absolutely brilliant. But when I got there, it wasn't quite like it had been advertised. We want to give you the truth. Loads of workshops on skills, behaviors, and career development. In the application process into entry-level jobs, a huge emphasis around your academic attainment, what you've done up until now and what you'll do with us. We do see some students coming to us who've not necessarily got brilliant academic records up until now, but it's a huge advantage if you work really hard, you perform business school to be able to say, look what I'm doing now and how well I'm doing it. That's a huge factor. In 10 years after you've got into that entry-level job, very few people are going to ask you what you did when you were at university. They're going to look at your track record over the 10 years, your ability to work with clients, to build relationships, to deal with difficult situations, to have commercial awareness. Those are the things we want to prepare you for now, so that it doesn't have to come in 10 years' time. Actually, it comes immediately, and you accelerate through that career journey as effectively as possible. Ben is involved in launching a Work Ready Award with some of our academic colleagues to give you the opportunity to be able to secure an extra certificate on your CV that says that you have got a Work Ready Award. It does really what it says on the tin. We are there to give you opportunities to get points for things that make you more work ready. And therefore we'll give you loads of opportunities, some of which will be in the university and some of which you might do in your own time, in your own personal life, but still potentially contribute towards your readiness for the workplace. And that rubber stamp that says, you know, the university has looked at what I've done, has decided that that has improved my readiness for the world of work is a great thing, again, to be showing to future employers. And we have jobs databases. We are increasingly finding that the international student community is telling us what they really want when they arrive at the university is the opportunity to do a part-time job, to get out into the UK job market, to find out what it's like, to improve their language skills, to improve their cultural awareness, and just again to get something on the CV, and of course some money alongside. So Ben and the team are certainly looking at how we can maximize the way in which we can help you when you first arrive to be able to get that part-time job that fulfills all those ambitions. And of course, going back to the employment promise, people who've got good work experience on their CV, even in part-time work, give themselves an advantage in getting the next job and the next job and the next job. So again, it's good news for you that we're offering the opportunity for you to find part-time jobs. It's good news for us because it makes you more employable and makes it more likely that you will achieve that success. A couple of really important points just to emphasize: it's a changing world. And no doubt the reason why you're looking at this session this morning is you're thinking about investing in your educational development, and you may not have thought about that previously, or you may have considered different options. The world has been shaken up in a way that we haven't seen for 60, 70, 80 years, and it's still resettling down at the moment, and I think there's going to be a considerable change moving forward. The workplace flexibility. Some of my colleagues today will be sitting at home, some of them will be in campuses like I am, some of them may well be starting work after lunch, some of them may well have started work very, very early this morning, some might work this evening, etc. Lots of flexibility in there, quite difficult to manage if I'm being perfectly honest, but actually excellent client service. I've got staff available from 6 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, and therefore if a student needs us, you've got that entire window. We are not open 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. And as an international University of Law business student, if you wanted to use us in your international location where the time difference meant that contacting us at 7 o'clock in the evening suited you, that's absolutely fine. That's what we're here for. We wouldn't be thinking, oh no, you have to come in hours that fit for us. And people who do have part-time jobs or other commitments will often find that they prefer to do things early in the morning or late in the afternoon, evening, sometimes even at the weekends. And again, we do have a weekend service available should people require that. So very, very flexible and putting you first as our student. And I think, again, some of these things like our employment promise and the way in which we serve you are very, very different to what other universities are offering. I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying that we have gone into this environment in a way that is really reflective of what we think students need. And when we speak to them, they tell us we're right. Diversity, inclusion and equality is the top priority of UK graduate recruiters. The top 100 recruiters have voted that over the last few years as their highest priority, to have a diverse, inclusive and equal workplace. And that's great news for international students, because I think despite some of the challenges that one might face with visas, of which we're extremely well placed to be able to help you, this desire to have a more diverse, inclusive and equal workplace is actually playing out very, very well for an international audience. And so we are finding that opportunities are probably greater than they might have been 2, 5, 6, 10 years ago. But very big changes to talent identification, very different ways in which people engage. We see a lot of engagement coming through LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Obviously today we are broadcasting live on Facebook. In the past that was never a recruitment strategy. Now social media, it's a huge source of identifying potential individuals. If you happen to come to us from, say, from China, and you find that there's an employer who's interested in someone that is studying, say, cybersecurity with the University of Law Business School, who speaks Mandarin, then they can track you down through social media and potentially be approaching you and say, I've got this job, are you interested? This is a very interesting dynamic that has arisen in the last few years. We have a very pretty diagram, sometimes a bit over colorful, which is our employability pyramid. There are slightly different versions of this. There's a softer version that is more like a triangle and is a little less tough on the eyes. But what it does is it gives us a real focus for saying to you, if you come to the University of Law Business School, you'll get your excellent academic education. But we also want you to leave with all of those skills that you can see developed so that you are the work-ready global graduate that we desire and that you should aspire to be. Some of these are pretty obvious: good communicator, good problem solver, good negotiator, good project manager. Those are things that are not new or different, but some of the things that we do find quite interesting are given to us by employers. Words such as transformation that you see at the top. One of our University of Law Business Advisory Board members told us that they felt that the most important word we could get across to prospective students and actual students was the ability to be transformative, to do things in different ways, to be a different person to the one who perhaps was operating in a very straightforward world where we didn't have COVID, now has to deal with some of the things that get thrown at us and transforms the way they operate because they have to. So give people the skills and help them articulate that in applications. And the ability to learn from disruption, constant disruption with all sorts of factors coming into play. No longer do employers say to us, it's okay if you can't do this because something went wrong, we'll understand that. Now they say if something goes wrong, you need to work out how to put it right. You need to deal with it. You need to deal with disruption and be ready to come out successfully at the other end. So these are really interesting developments, and again, things that we would want to give you, because if we give you these skills, then you're more likely to get a job. If you're more likely to get a job, then you'll be happy and the employment promise won't crystallize. So although I've started off this presentation talking about the offer of the employment promise, as you will hopefully see, the goal really is to avoid that ever needing to be crystallized. We don't want it, you don't want it, and therefore everything we do is trying to improve your employability and your chances of employment. We did a placement with a local business in London, and I just put this quote up from the employer, who said that the individual had been extremely professional. Brilliant. We spent a lot of time telling you what a professional looks like in front of a UK employer. During his internship tenure with our company, he's been able to build a very strong foundation for our marketing initiatives. So this was a student doing digital marketing who's been able to come into a business and make a massive difference to that business across the globe. So here he is coming over from I think he was a student from Malaysia, coming over from Malaysia and making an impact on a UK-based company, but a company that operates across the globe, the work-ready global graduate that I mentioned earlier, with this focus on digital streams. And again, this employer said to us that they had looked at other students potentially to employ on an internship, and none of them had digital marketing skills and knowledge at the same level as the student from the University of Law Business School. Based on past experience and recent expertise gained during his formal education in the UK, he's been able to accelerate our GTM plans for multiple B2B verticals. Now, I'm not going to tell you I'm an expert in GTM or multiple B2B verticals, but that's brilliant. That is what the employer wanted. The employer recruits because they found someone who's got what they need. And here we have, based on his past experience, so he had some work experience in the marketing space, but his recent expertise, and I love that word expertise. This is not something he's come and got an education and he's got an academic record that says I've passed exams well. He's got expertise that transfers across into the workplace to help make a difference to that particular employer. And thanks to his man management skills, again, that employability pyramid, it's all very well being brilliant at digital marketing and having the latest knowledge, but if you can't work with people and organize things in that perspective, then you're going to come up short. But his man management skills, again, very much part of the professional development module that he would have been on with us, has helped him build a strong team of marketing executives. He went in, there was no team. He left after a successful internship, and there is a team that has been employed to be able to carry on his good work. So for me, this is a really successful story and one that emphasizes the benefits. That individual is not going to be claiming the employment promise. He is going off to a very, very good job, completion of his course, very happy, very satisfied, and he's going to be a fantastic ambassador for the University of Law Business School in the future. That gives you a run through of what it is that the employment promise and the infrastructure that we have at the university is all about. You've got my details there on screen, John Watkins, and also our careers business email account. If you want to come back with any questions about what's been said, you'll obviously get the opportunity in a moment through Daisy to pose any questions. But if you want to keep that to yourself and just ask one of us, then please do come through separately. And obviously there's lots and lots of information about the courses, the different masters that we have on offer, how to apply, what entry requirements are, and a little bit more information about some of the content of the courses and the employability support. But I hope that what I've done over the last half an hour or so has given you a bit of a flavour for the University of Law Business School, and maybe one or two questions that you'd like to ask now. So Daisy, back to you.
All right, thank you very much. That's such informative presentation from you, John. Thank you very much. Okay, so actually we have the question here. But I think Ben Osborne, do the really good job of answer the students. But let me bring it up here in the presentation again. The student asked, can you talk about the detail, the placement year? Do university help students to get a full-time or part-time job, and paid or unpaid? So let's discuss about this.
Yes, certainly. For students who arrive with us after September 2022, so by definition, I think everybody who's listening today, we will have a 2-year program. Year 1 is taught, and it's absolutely the same for everybody. You would start in, I think it's the early days in October 2022, and the taught course will finish in the early days of October 2023. So a full year's taught program, at the end of which you will have an academic master's that you will have achieved. For those students who wish to and are successful in being able to find a placement, they can then do that for a further year. And if I start at the back of that, if you are successful in getting a placement, then you go out and you work, and you are supervised by your employer. We make sure that they are prepared for you and what you will be doing. And you are also supervised by a placement tutor from the university, who first of all makes sure that you're okay in the sort of pastoral sense, making sure that you are looking after yourself and things are going okay, but then starts to explore with you what you're learning, how you are improving, how you are developing, and making sure that you can understand the benefits that you're deriving, because at the end of that year, you would need to do a presentation and a short report that says, this is what I have taken out of the placement year, how I have improved as an individual, where I see this going for me in the future. So that's how the support would work. In terms of getting onto that placement, well, on day 1 of your course, so in October 2022, Ben, I, or one of our colleagues will say to you, are you interested in doing a placement? And there's no obligation on this count, but if you say yes, you are, then we'll start to say, well, what sort of placement would you like? And we'll find a wide variety. Lots of people have different ambitions. They either want to work in different areas, different size businesses. They might want to work in one that has a lot of office time, some that's more remote. So very individual. And then we'll work with you individually to try and get you ready for that challenge, and to go through the recruitment processes, identifying placement opportunities that we can say, why don't you go for this? Identifying opportunities that you might be able to create for yourselves. So we have found that one of our students that achieved a placement secured it on the back of an employer talk. The employer came in to do a talk. The student spoke to them afterwards and said how interesting that was and how they'd like to find out more. They met up and had a coffee and talked a little bit more, and then 2 to 3 months down the line, the individual actually ended up starting to work for that particular employer. So they had created the opportunity themselves without there ever being an advertised vacancy. So lots of different ways in which potentially somebody might end up in a placement. We would, as Ben has indicated, provide all the resources, all the search tools, all the guidance to be able to navigate a recruitment process. But it is important to stress that a placement is a job, and you have to get that job. We can't say you have this one, you have this one. You need to get in front of the employer and convince them to employ you. And in the quote that I gave that said, the employer was saying how effectively the individual had added value, you need to demonstrate that you will add value. We will say to almost all employers that we want the job to be paid, that it's going to add value and therefore it will be paid. We don't expect many students to be able to work for a year and not be paid in that time and be able to survive financially. So although we have the right to be able to approve an unpaid placement, it would be a very difficult thing to prove. You would need to show that you had significant financial resources to be able to pay for your accommodation, your food, your heating, because it does get cold in the UK occasionally. You would need to be able to prove that you were financially sustainable. And in the most cases, we would not expect people to. And we would push very hard with employers that they should not be exploiting students who are adding value to their business and not being paid. We do have charities, we do have not-for-profit organizations who may well say to us, this is difficult for us. And I suspect that in the due course that there may well be a fund in which we can draw out for those that are being paid poorly or not at all. But as things stand at the moment, our goal as the professional university is to prepare professionals who are worth paying for. So the goal is that all these placements are paid.
That's clear. Thank you for your answer, John. And one more question here. What if the job is not in the UK, like maybe the job is overseas? Is it possible?
My understanding that will be quite difficult. If you come to the UK on a visa that allows you to study and undertake a work placement in the UK, then it will be more difficult for you to be able to take up an opportunity elsewhere. We have not had any. We have not had any.
Học mẹ Sunderland, em còn thấy hơn nó về.
Oh, sorry.
We have
gone. Oops, you got mute as well.
Yeah, we've not had any students who have come from an international location to the UK who have then left the UK to do a placement. We do have a couple of students who are doing placements for international organizations, but they are staying within the UK. So we have one student who's doing a placement for a business in Canada, but they are working from London and have stayed within London. So there are possibilities that we can explore, but we also need to do it within the visa constraints. And it's very important that we will make sure that both from the university's perspective and the individual's perspective, that we have complied with everything that needs to be done to make sure that there are no issues with the authorities.
I see. Right. So it's depend on the visa issue.
Yeah, I think the reality is if you're going to come to the University of Law Business School in the UK, in a sense, you are coming to get some of the UK education and experience. Now, we do recognise that there's opportunities outside of the UK, but the vast majority of our students so far have said, if I come to the UK to study, I would like to work in the UK after I finish my studies, and therefore that is the case. But when on day one we say to you, what are your interests and aspirations, we will listen to what you say. We have several students who don't want to do a placement, who have said to us, I'd like to get a job when I leave. We've had one student that's just got a brilliant marketing job, a graduate marketing job with Sky. And they will be leaving us to go off into a graduate role. They will not be doing a placement because their ambition at the start was to get a job so that when they left, they left. Whereas other students have said, no, I'd like to stay on. If you're staying on to do the placement, that is work, but it's also academic. You've got to be able to write up a placement report and do a presentation. So you're still attached to the university. And some students say, actually, once I finish my studies, I want to go off. I want to just be free and to have that opportunity to move around the job market as I see fit.
I see. Thank you for that. And as the name of the university is the University of Law, I would like you to clarify, because some students are concerned, like if does the university has any job fair, and is the partnership or the company that work with you or partnership with you, all of them are law firm or not, or variety?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's a very fair question. I think it's fair to say that we're all under a single umbrella. So I am the Director of Employability for the whole of the university. But our business students and our law students are quite different. We've been doing law for such a long time. We've got huge numbers of law students, 10,000, 12,000 law students, lots of relationships established. With the business school, we are dealing with predominantly international students, so that is very different to the law. And the focus, I don't do talks like this to students who are thinking about doing the law. We do get some international students who want to do the law, but the vast majority want to do business courses. Our business courses are cutting edge, so they are literally, as things happen in the world, they are being updated and modified to reflect the changing landscape, whereas the law is very restrictive. You have to teach a certain thing in a certain way to comply with the legal regulations that you come through. Business is much broader, much more real. So it's international, it's much more dynamic. And I think it's also one where our numbers are smaller. So we have 1,000 students studying business courses. That's not a lot, not a little number, but it does give us a lot more flexibility. And that question that we ask every business student when they arrive, what do you want to do, is not something we can do for 14,000 law students. We know that most of our law students want to work for a law firm, so we do support them in that way. But what we want to do with the business students, particularly international business students, is to say to you each individually, what do you want to do? And then we will try to support you achieving that particular ambition. So it's absolutely fair to say that with the name, the University of Law, the business element is a smaller component. But actually what we're trying to demonstrate today, and what we're making with this promise, is that if you come to us, we promise that we will give you the best possible support. There will be fairs, but there'll be other things beyond that. Not every student benefits from going to a fair. Some of the events that we do, some of the competitions that we run, some of the initiatives that we've got playing, the Work Ready Award, those sorts of things, actually, our students tell us, are more likely to help them get a job than a traditional jobs fair. So we'll have the mixture, but we will have the things that we hope are most likely to help individuals succeed, rather than just doing the things that many other universities do. They do well, but actually we want to do things better.
Thank you very much. And the next question, John, the students would like to, what if, this one, the question about the admission part. If the student is in international year one, and then can you accept international year one from on-campus London?
I think I'm just trying to understand your question. Essentially, we have something called campus switch. So if a student wants to come into Moorgate and then discovers that London is not the exciting place they thought it was, and they want to go to Birmingham or Manchester or Leeds or Nottingham, or indeed they need to go home and continue their studies online, then you are able to change and switch between those campuses. We see a few of our students deciding that for personal reasons that they may want to move from one city to another. Perhaps if they've got a relationship, or they've decided that they want to work in a different part of the country to where they have been brought up, then they can move across the country. So there's plenty of flexibility in there. So if a student, international student says, I want to study for 6 months of the year at home in my own country and 6 months in the UK, then we would try and find a way in which that would work. Having said that, part of the experience is to be with your fellow students. And if you turned up, halfway through the course, then it would be much more difficult to build the relationships and to have the full-blown student experience. But if that's what works for somebody, then then we wouldn't stand in their way. So there's lots of flexibility.
Yeah. What if, because the promise is really huge and attractive to the students, so what if the student do year one, or foundation year in Parkway or other institutions? Would you accept them? And then is it are they able to get this promise from you?
Any student that signs up to do our master's course will be able to have the promise. So it doesn't matter where they've studied and what they've done previously. If they get a place on our course, then the promise would apply to them. So yeah, we recognize that most of the students that are coming to us will have studied most of their education away, both from the UK and from the University of Law Business School. So that is the normal expectation. And therefore, yes, the promise applies to everybody in that situation.
Thank you very much. And another question, John, from Indonesia. Do you have any explanation or data about employment rate of master program in international business law. And is there any one-year placement opportunity as well for the, what is that, affordment master program?
In international business law, I don't have the figures off my top of my head. As I say, we've not been doing business courses for very long. The first year in which we were able to gather the data, our employment rate was 100%. Now that in a sense sounds, almost too good to be true, because it was a small number of students. I think we were talking less than 100 students, and they all happened to get a job. If you have less than 100 students and 5 of them don't get a job, then it's 95%. If 10 don't get a job, it's 90%. So quite a lot of shift within all of that. Statistics are obviously important. As things stand at the moment, because the world has been thrown up in the air a little bit, I think sometimes it's difficult to look at statistics in quite the same way at the moment. The pandemic has clearly had a major implication, and therefore making comparisons and contrast. But I think if you come back to it, that the research that we did when we set up the employment promise for the business students, which only launched at the end of last year, so December 2021, suggested that of the students that have been through the programs over the last few years, there would be less than 10 who would have been able to claim the employment promise, because the vast majority of them have gone on to get a job of some description. Now, this is, again, something I don't want people to make a decision about coming to the University of Law Business School based upon relatively small numbers of statistics. But our goal for each individual person is that you achieve your ambitions. And if your ambition at the start is to get a job, certainly within the 9 months after you've left, then we are very confident that between us, we can help achieve that particular ambition. So I would focus much, much more on your individual situation rather than the statistics that have gone before. The only note of caution on that is if you come here and say, well, I want to work for a huge investment bank, and I only want to work in this department, and I only want to work these hours, and I want this salary, then sometimes that might be difficult to achieve. And so you've got to be a bit realistic. And of course, that's part of our job, is to say, look, looking at what you've got at the moment, it may be difficult to meet the entry requirements in a very competitive market for that particular type of job. However, if you look at this and this, these will be fantastic places to spend 2 or 3 years, at the end of which you will be very much better placed to apply for that type of job that you want at the moment. So that's part of the careers education piece that we would provide to students.
I see. So let's say you have like individual, like one-to-one train, or people to talk with the student individually. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. There is no limit to the number of one-to-one appointments that you can have. Some of our students will have 10, 15, 20 appointments, as they go through the various different processes, they work out what matters to them. Some will have none at all. It varies according to individual. And, we do obviously have the ambition of trying to make you as self-sufficient as possible. So, if somebody says, look, I need help with my CV, we would say, well, we've given you, because we would at the start of the course, give you a business CV starter pack. We would expect a student to look at that starter pack and to draft a CV that reflects the advice that we've given in that starter pack. We would not expect a student to come in and say, can you help me start off from a blank sheet of paper? So again, as a professional university, preparing you for the work-ready global graduate role, when you we're going to help you enormously, but we want to make sure that you also take personal responsibility, because you're going to need to do that when you get into the workplace.
I see. Thank you. That's really clear. And then, we have a question about the admission part here, about if the student has 1 year, do 1 year placement, will the student get a combined class? So your colleague answer already here, the student will get a combined class. So, wow, what better than this to get a 1 year placement, and after that you have the promise, and then you have PSW visa. What better than this, right?
Well, you said it, Daisy. Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's a single CAS that covers 2 years, but it's important. I think Ben's made the point in the chat box that it's not guaranteed. So if after 1 year you have not found a placement, then you would need to move on to what we call the graduate visa, which is entitled to any international student can apply for a visa to stay for 2 years in the UK. So if you don't get a placement, you could do the 1 year taught and then have the 2 year, so 3 years in total. If you do the placement, it could be 4 years. And I think it's an important point to make that the placement means that you are stuck for a year. So if you do a placement with an organization, you can't move because you've got to see out that placement and you've got to write your report. So I think there's going to be quite a lot of students for whom it might sound attractive and it's a good option, but actually when you get here might be saying, I would rather try and get a job when I leave that gives me more flexibility. So we've had several students who've started placements who've then said to us, actually, I'd love to take on another job. And we said, sorry, you can't. You've got to do the placement. We've signed an agreement with the employer. You need to see it through. You need to wait until the end of that placement before you can move on to another job. So again, we would explain that to everybody at the start. But I do think that in a sense, placements will work for some people, but for others, it may not be the right option. But at least you're guaranteed the 3 years from the 1 year study and then the 2 years of the graduate visa, after which, you know, there's all sorts of different permutations that might arise.
That's really informative from you, John. And yeah, so that's really I think that's an attractive thing for the students, especially international students who would like to work and have a job and opportunity after they graduated in the UK.
Well, I hope it does sound attractive. And I think that commitment that we've got really from day one to helping getting the work ready global graduate developed is, you know, the key part of the message. So whilst, yes, the opportunity to be in the UK for 3 years, the possibility of getting some money back if you need it are definitely relevant. I think the most important things that have been said today are about our commitment to helping you succeed from the first day you arrive till the day you've left, and indeed after you've left, and helping you in that capacity are probably the things that people should take away from this as being the real reason why you should apply to us. If the other factors are helpful, then great, but the main reason is the employability commitment and support is, in my view, and I'm biased, second to none.
That's fair enough. And you sound like a coach, like top coach. Right. So my last question here, John, before we finish the presentation today, what kind of students are you looking for? What kind of the students that you would like to coach them? I
think it's a very simple answer. I mean, I'm looking for people who are receptive, because I personally, in the jobs that I have done over years, just love people and different people. And therefore, I don't really mind where you come from, what you believe in, what your attitudes are in terms of preferences and everything else. You know, I love the diversity that comes in, and no two people are the same. But you need to be receptive to learning. You need to be, you know, coming here with a real determination to succeed. If you've got that attribute, the right attitude in place, then we can work with absolutely everybody. And I've certainly really enjoyed over the last couple of years, you know, meeting a broader international spectrum of students. I think I was counting today about 17 different countries that I can recall engaging with over the last couple of years. And it's made me, you know, more aware, broader. It's developed my skills. And of course, you never stop developing your capabilities, even after you have been in the workplace for a long time, as I have. So my understanding, and I particularly enjoyed some interaction with a group of students who, you know, were saying, this is what I've done. One of the modules that we do, we asked students to do a short presentation about what have you learned from the session that we've given over the course of the term. And I always find that really, really interesting. And the one that comes out more than anything else is the importance of something called brand. We make sure that everybody is aware that we all have a personal brand. And you are really responsible for managing and developing your personal brand. And that's the thing that, of all the sessions that we cover, that's the one that people come back and say they learned the most. It made them really think about how they come across in front of other people, and actively taking responsibility for their personal brand. So I think that's a good note on which to finish today's proceedings.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Ben. I can see you answer the students through the chat box as well. So thank you for answering those questions today. And thank you for the great presentation and informative presentation today. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for today's webinar and have a lovely day today.
Thank you very much, Daisy. Lovely to see you. All the very best, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
you.
Thank you.